All right, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Basten, you were second in the NCAA mile final, .03 off the win. So let's just dig straight into it. How are you going? How are you feeling?
To be honest, not feeling great. Bruised up pretty much everywhere from diving across the line and a bit of a back injury now from it too. So I'm walking like a grandpa this week, but just taking a few days off here and then I'll kind of get back into training. So it's the best time to be dealing with this kind of stuff. But yeah,
Yeah,
a little dinged up at the moment.
yeah, definitely. Where are you right now for anyone listening? I feel like it kind of is pretty nice that you're on spring break, having a few days off. You're not hammering schoolwork. So what's going on there?
I'm in Boulder, Colorado for spring break with the boys. All pretty much our entire guys team's here. They're all climbing a mountain right now, but I'm filming this. And yeah, we're all just kind of hanging out, celebrating spring break, celebrating nationals and training and all the fun stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I guess we can kind of talk a little bit about the whole nationals experience. Your prelim, it was top four from each of the prelims, and then next two fastest time. So two prelims of eight. I think only seven started in the second prelim because of an injury. I think.
Yep.
Two prelims of eight, but second heat had seven. Top four from each, and then two on time. Um, we've talked a little bit about your racing tactics kind of changing over the last kind of year or so as you've grown in confidence. But when I watched your prelim, I was like, oh, it's the old Basten back to his old ways, like just straight in at the back. Talk us through it. Obviously, you came through and it worked, but how were you feeling going into that?
I was feeling pretty good, and I think honestly that strategy of being in the back in the prelim is just it's just so comfortable and so easy because you only have to finish in the top half, right? So like if you're in the back early, two or three people tend to fall off and fall apart at nationals every year. So you really just have to outkick one guy that's like a few places ahead of you, and it always seems to separate and it always seems to kind of take care of itself. Like never have to really close anything absolutely ridiculous, but you just have to close solid, close like you would in any sort of time trial event, and get yourself into the final. Really,
Yeah, and you got the job done. I think you were 217 through 800. Um, my memory could be off there, but I think it was something like that, something in that range. So yeah, and then I think yeah, you kicked down and closed in 151 or 152 for the last 800. I don't even know if
yep.
you realized that it was like a 54 last lap, maybe last.
Yeah, it was 151.7. Yeah, Burnt texted me about it, and he was like, "That was ridiculous," but it honestly felt pretty easy, which is weird because I raced an all out 800 like a couple months ago, and I could only run 148. So I don't know. Clearly, I can run a faster 800 than I did at the beginning of the season, and it just shows how much your speed improves throughout the year. It's just crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of actually, altitude, how did you find it? Did you feel anything, or were you kind of just like, fine with it? It was the same for everyone.
Dude, I didn't even notice it, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I think I noticed it a little bit like on my easy jogs, just because I would go like probably 15 seconds slower a mile or something. But I did not notice it at all during the race. And it just confirms my suspicion that I think altitude conversions are complete BS. And
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that I ran 403 in that final and it didn't even wasn't even close to feeling all out. And that would convert to 357. Like that's ridiculous. That was not a 357 mile. That was a 403 mile.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
don't know. That's
What
just my opinion on the matter, but
were you
whatever.
were you 206 in the final through 800? It was a little bit quicker than your prelim. Something like
I
206?
I honestly don't even know. I haven't looked back at the splits, but yeah, that sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah. So just to give a little bit more context, from the second heat, because it went quicker, um, the second heat ended up getting six through, and only seven guys were in the field to begin with, because there was a
So
DNS. So, and then from that, so of those 6, Thomas Van Oppen was the final one through, and he ended up not starting in the final. So it kind of went from 2 heats of 8 to 1 heat of 8, 1 heat of 7, and then a DNS for the final as well. So
Yep.
going into the final, how are you feeling? Like, what was your kind of mental approach? Obviously, you've always been pretty confident in what you can do, and this one, I was saying to the guys and girls here in Baltimore, I was like, this one you really could win. Like, I really wouldn't be surprised to see you win it. So, how are you feeling going into the final?
I felt really good, which is the most annoying part about it is like I knew I was ready to win that thing, and just doing strides and stuff like next to all the Washington guys, next to Anasa Sai, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to beat Asai, and I'm gonna have to beat these Washington boys. But I really thought the only Washington boy that would come back and be super relevant, it would be Wascom again, because he always is. But man, I was just completely wrong. It wasn't Wascom at all. But yeah, I beat the 2 guys that I keyed off on, that I was like, if I beat these 2 guys, I'm going to win the race. I beat them both, and I still didn't win the race, which is crazy. But
Yeah.
Tactically, I think going into it, I knew the Washington boys would have some sort of plan, right? Because there's 4 of them in this final, which is literally half the field. They're planning on doing something, and for the first 600 meters, Elliot Cook from Oregon was in first, and the Michigan guy was in second, Connor Murphy, which is super weird because they're both 800 guys. So, like, you would think that they would be in the back and kind of
Yeah.
waiting to kick down, but it was the exact opposite. And then randomly, like 600 meters in, maybe 800 meters in, I don't really remember, but all the Washington boys just sprint around the lead and take it. And I was like, whoa, all right, well, this is the plan. And then after that, really for the rest of the race, they kept they kept gradually making these moves with each other, like to keep switching off who was leading, and like they kept switching spots in between them, which I found super annoying. And I think they completely did this on purpose, but it just makes it impossible to pass him. Like when they're always too wide and they're always moving around, some are wide, some are in, they're switching around. Like it makes it impossible to race tactically behind them because they're just so annoying. They're constantly flipping positions, and you don't know if the kick is completely going, if it's not. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that really bothered me. And the Washington coach came up to me afterwards and said that they planned their guys around beating me, which is a pretty cool compliment to get from a coach that's that good of a coach. But yeah, it worked. It was a really good strategy. I still had energy left, and with about 300 meters to go, I tried to move around Wascom and get myself into second place to kick. Wascom held off my move, which is what I think lost me the race. Wascom holds off my move with about 250 to go, and then I tuck back in behind him. And I thought, all right, I'm going to have one more opportunity at it in the next lap. And then the next lap came around, and by the time we were in that back straight with like 150 to go, I was going to tuck and move to the outside, but Anasa Sai was on my outside trying to move up. But he was doing it so slowly because the guy just doesn't have a great kick. So he was moving not as fast as I would have wanted to move up. And so I waited again. And then by that point, there's only one straightaway left. And Wascom cut to the outside because I think he had the race won. I'm sure he thought he was going to move around Hauser. Wascom cuts out. I saw the lane move up on the inside. I just sprinted right through it. And I was like, man, all right, this is it. This is my chance. But at that point, there just wasn't quite enough space. And I thought maybe if I dove at the line, I could get him. So I dove at the line, and I thought I won for a second. But I realized right when I looked at the clock that I passed him just after the line instead of just before it. So
Yeah.
a tough way to get second, but just so frustrating. But it is what it is. You gotta get a little bit of luck. Like if you are gonna sit and kick, you gotta get a little bit of luck, and that's something that has to open up at some point. And in both the finals I've been in, both the indoor finals the last 2 years, just nothing's opened up for me. And so this year I was able to capitalize on something opening up really, really late. And last year nothing ever opened up, so I couldn't capitalize on that. But so yeah, I'll take second. It's big for me in my career. It obviously helps out because fifth was my best finish before that. But um, it's a little frustrating just knowing that I probably had the freshest legs of the field. Like I was probably feeling the best of the field, and I couldn't quite get it done.
Yeah, yeah. Just going back a little bit to, I guess, early on in the final, like, we were talking about your strategy before. You were in, I can't remember for sure, but like fifth or sixth, maybe seventh. Oh, probably. Oh no, you weren't that far back. Kind of fifth or sixth, probably. Instead of being right at the back. Was that probably it was a conscious decision, like a proper plan to be, a little bit more mid pack instead of being right at the back.
It was a plan, and it was only a plan because the Washington boys had 8, 9, and 10. So the Washington boys were on the outside in that waterfall. And so I didn't really know how hard they would go out. And so I knew that if they went out really hard, like if they made it a fast race and the people on the inside weren't aware of that, it could get away from me right away. And
Yeah,
so I was like in my head, I'm just gonna get out in the middle of the pack, just playing it completely safe so that no matter what happens, I'm in a decent spot.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty cool to watch. I thought you were a little bit stuck with like 100 to go, and that there was no way you could come through. And then with about, you know, 20 meters to go, it was like you it opened up and you nearly got him, obviously. So it was cool to watch. And we, from the angle we were watching from, like, it looked like you probably hadn't quite got him. But then when they showed another angle, it was like you actually might have won this. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, second is still huge. Would you, change anything? Would you have tried to? I think I listened to an interview of yours, and you might have tried to fully commit to that move and get around Wascombe a little bit earlier, maybe, or what do you think?
Yeah, I just don't know. It's a great question because if I really commit to that move and move around Wascombe, I might not have the energy to hold on to it with 200 to go. So,
Yeah,
looking back on it, like I don't regret anything. Like I feel like I ran a really good tactical race. Like I
yeah,
was constantly thinking on my feet, and like I feel like I reacted really well to what was going on around me. It
mhm,
just it just didn't quite work out, which is really unfortunate. But it is what it is. There's so much luck to running, especially indoors
yeah,
when you just never know what's going to happen. So, yeah, yeah,
yeah. I guess that kind of is most of the mile talk. A lot of pretty crazy events going on. Obviously, as distance fans, we're kind of anything from the 800 to the 5K indoors. So I guess we can kind of touch on that a little bit. We did have a few predictions, so we can kind of go back over them a little bit and see how we went. But I think honestly, in the distance races, maybe the altitude played in a little bit more. Not necessarily for everyone, and I feel like the people who live and train at altitude probably like were definitely at an advantage when it came to how the altitude was. But uh, yeah, what do you think of the other events? Obviously, we had Foad winning the 3K, and then Dylan Jacobs, 5K champ. Pretty impressive stuff.
yeah. The Dylan Jacobs one was pretty expected. I feel like he was just in the best fitness of the field. I am surprised that Kai didn't give him a bigger run for his money. I kind of thought he would, but um, but yeah, Jacobs is just so good. The 10K champ last year, pretty expected. I think I did predict that one right. And I think you did as well because I think you said that you thought Dylan was going to win the first race he ran.
Exactly.
Um, you
Yeah.
thought the 3K was first, but the 5K was first, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I think we were both pretty spot on that. Um, Jacobs is just so good. He can close the DMR in like a 356, 357 mile, and he just has the strength to win the 10K as well. So you just know nothing is affect him as much as it probably affects the others, and he was going to take care of it.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. And then yeah, I guess just kind of quickly touching on it, the 3K, Drew Bosley had a good battle with Foad Masoudi. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Yeah.
Jackson Sharp also right up there. That was, I mean, obviously Jackson Sharp is a really, really great runner, but I was slightly surprised with like 600 to go that he was looking so relaxed and he was kind of moving up around the outside. We were saying he he's gonna win it. But obviously, didn't quite have the legs at the end. But third for Jackson Sharp is a really great result.
Oh yeah,
In
that's
that field.
career changing for
Yeah,
Jackson Sharp for sure.
yeah,
Yep.
really good run. I did think Drew Bosley was gonna hold on to it at the end there. But yeah, great run from Masaudi, Oklahoma State. They're on a tear. They won the distance medley relay as well. So I guess double gold for him. Pretty cool.
Yep. And I don't know, kind of going back to the 5K quick, because Bosley was in the 5K as well. And did he get third in the 5K? Third
Yeah,
or
yeah,
fourth?
third in the
It
5K.
was that was the worst tactical race I've ever seen anyone run.
Yeah,
What Bosley did in that 5K. It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
it kind of seemed like he fartleked it, didn't he? But like
Yeah,
between surges at the front, like
yeah, like he went to the front, and I don't know if the NAU coach planned on having him and Nico like switch off who was leading, which
mhm,
is a good plan for altitude because they're acclimated to the altitude and the rest of the athletes aren't.
yeah,
But if you're going to do that, you have to commit to the fast pace, and they didn't do that.
yeah. It
So
was kind of
what's the
fast and then slowed right down. And I feel like Dylan Jacobs, of all of the people in that field, he kind of seemed like he was pretty relaxed. He was right near the front, but he wasn't like completely covering every move because it kind of seemed like he got used to, a little bit of a pace increase and then it would slow down again. So he kind of just like was smart with it and just like steadily moved up, still being right at
yeah
the front of the pack, but not sprinting and then slowing down because that you're wasting energy.
Drew Bosley wasted so much energy during that race, and I'm sure he regrets it looking back. But I I don't know I'm just curious what the strategy was because it didn't make any sense to me. I'd love to hear what the strategy was because maybe there's something like maybe Nico was kind of supposed to take it from Bosley in those moments because you kind of noticed towards the end of the race, Bosley was leading a lot more than Nico was.
Yeah.
So maybe Nico wasn't feeling good enough to take the lead back from him.
Mhm.
But yeah, it just ended up being so much wasted energy from Bosley, which I feel like he might have been able to win the race had he not wasted so much energy at the front. But either way, I mean, Dylan Jacobs is just so good, and he deserved the win. He was by far the smartest runner in that race, and combining that with his talent, yeah, he deserved the win.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think of the 800? Do you see the DQ?
So I was standing in the backstretch during the 800, so I didn't because I was like at the awards area because they hadn't done the awards ceremony yet for the mile, so I was kind of waiting for him to do that. So I watched the 800 in that back straight, and I didn't even see that. I didn't even see that he was cutting him off in the last couple hundred meters because you couldn't really see it from my angle.
Yeah.
And so, obviously the protest came in afterwards, and I feel so bad for that. Is it Mississippi State, the guy who won?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like a couple different companies interviewed him afterwards, and he was like talking about like all glory to God and like thanking people, and like he was doing his interviews and just so happy. And then like 5 minutes later, everyone just gasps because they re-showed the 800-meter results on the board, but added the DQ for his name at the bottom. And I felt so bad for him. And
Yeah.
the Texas guys celebrated, which good for them. I mean, he did cut off Bismana, so he probably should have been DQ'd. Like that was pretty terrible, blatant cutting him off. But at the same time, that Mississippi State guy was clearly the second best runner in that final.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like,
Navasi Anderson is his name. And honestly, it is a tough one because like a lot of people would argue that he could have won it anyway if he just held his line. But I think it's got to be a DQ because like he's running in a straight line. Then it's almost like he looks up at the board, sees Bismana's coming, and moves out. And Bismana touched lane 4. By the time he was on the ground, he was in lane 4. So it's like, you know, maybe
yeah,
you can move out a little bit. I think the actual rule is like you can finish in lane 3, obviously, if you're not like impeding anyone. But I think the rule is like when you come into home straight, you've got to like hold your line. So if you come into home straight and you've got a lot of momentum, like kind of you're just moving out anyway, that's fine. If someone's on your
yeah,
shoulder and kind of you're just following that line that you're already on, it's kind of okay. But I think because he was in lane 1 he came into the straight in lane 1 and then he moved out. I think that's why it happened. And speaking of the interviews, I think the interviews are still up. I don't know if they'll like take them down or whatever. I doubt they will, but who knows? They might.
They should, for his sake, take them down.
Yeah, because he's being interviewed. And mid-interview, I don't know what broadcaster it was, but like mid-interview, he's like talking about how he's won and like he's really happy. And then they're like, there's a rumor you might have been DQ'd, and like he's like, whatever, keeps going. And then it's like, oh, you've been DQ'd. What do you think about that? Like they told him that right there. And so then he was like, right, I'm gonna go and talk to my coach, and just kind of cut the interview short there, understandably, because that would be pretty, shocking to him. So yeah, it's a tough one, but it was pretty cool seeing the Texas boys go 1-2.
Which it's a great feeling for the Texas boys to go 1-2, but I feel like that Mississippi State guy, DQs are tough because he deserved to get second in that race.
Yeah.
Because he was clearly the second best runner. I mean, Creighton Croza was so far back of those two. And then Croza got a second place trophy, which, like, I'm close buddies with Croza. I'm super proud of him for getting a second place trophy, but he was clearly the third best runner in that race.
Yeah.
That can't even be debated. Like, it wasn't even really close. Like, so I don't know, but yeah, I think I agree with you. You have to DQ him, but it's like, man, like, just sucks for him because
No, definitely. Shall we briefly actually talk about who we had predicted for the 3K and 5K? So
sure.
I can start. So I know we kind of briefly talked about it, but I thought Jacobs would win whichever event he was doing first, and I had it in my head that the 3K was first up. So for the 5K, I had Kai Robinson, Nico Young, and Charles Hicks. I think Kai ended up 7th, Nico was 4th, and Charles Hicks was 9th, I think. I could have that wrong.
You killed it.
It's pretty bad, to be honest. And then you actually did pretty well, I think. Like, go on.
Who did I have? I had Jacobs winning, I know. Did I have Kai getting second?
No. So you had Jacobs, then Alex Meyer, and then
Nico.
So,
well, I was one off with Nico Young. The only thing I didn't get right was that Bosley would be the best runner in NAU. Like, I don't know what's happened to Nico Young this indoor season, but he has been passed up by Drew Bosley. Like, Drew Bosley has looked so good throughout both those indoor finals. Good for him. But yeah, I think Drew Bosley's the guy that, hey, if he figures his tactics come outdoor, he's going to be really dangerous.
Yeah.
In whatever event he chooses to do.
Yeah. No, definitely. And then for the 3K, I had Jacobs, Asai, and Gilman. So nailed it once again. Jacobs is the one I was closest with. He ended up 6th. Obviously, probably pretty tired legs, understandably, from winning the 5K the night before. Asai didn't even start after the mile, so I nailed that. And then Sam Gilman was 11th. So I was only 8 off with him. Could be worse. He's one who trains at altitude as well. So maybe some of the logic in the back of my mind, I was like, he'll be all right.
I was a Gilman believer as well. Didn't I have him getting second?
You did. Oh, but dude, you got the winner right.
I got the winner right. I knew Fouad would win the 3K. Dude, Fouad is so good. Yeah. Like, combining his mile speed, like, the guy can run 3:54 on any given day, and he's great over 5K. He was 10th in cross nationals, which is incredible. Yeah. So yeah, like, had a feeling he would win, especially just because out of the big guys like Dylan Jacobs, Kai Robinson, he's the freshest. Like, the 1200 to the DMR just doesn't take as much out of you as the 5K does. So that's why I picked him to win. Got that right. Sam Gilman just had a really bad day, I think, honestly, because I think on his best day, he's obviously way better than 11th. He just must have had a bad day. And then who did I say would get third?
you had Ryan Shopey, who
Mm.
is Boad's teammate. He let you down a little bit there. Obviously, after the DMR, a little bit tired, but
Yeah. Yeah. Which it surprises me that he didn't do better because by the time he got the baton in the DMR, he had such a big lead. He could have just jogged it in. So I would have thought he'd be a little fresher and run a little bit better, but he must have had a bad day as well. I don't know what place he got.
14th.
He
Yeah,
14th.
yeah,
Tough.
and only 15 starters after Asai didn't start because of the mile, but and Brian Fay ended up 15th, which
Jeez.
is understandable because of the mile as well. I think he was eighth, seventh or eighth in the mile, and then came through for.
Yep.
I mean, you got to give him credit for running the 3K an hour after running the mile. You'd be on pretty tired legs, so it's understandable kind of seeing that happen. But yeah, I'd say nationals overall was pretty cool to watch at least.
Do you think after Brian Fay's results and both of his events have come in, do you think it was a good or a bad decision for him to run the mile over the 5K?
Um, I mean, looking at how it ended up for him, did he run the DMR? See, I don't even know that.
No, it was Wascom Green and Kieran Lum.
Okay. And Lum ran the 3K. He was eighth in the 3K. See, if Brian Fay wasn't in the DMR anyway, and he ran the mile prelim, mile final, and the 3K, maybe now looking back on it, he'll regret not running the 5K. But I don't know. It's hard to say.
I kind of think he would have placed similarly in the 5K as he did in the mile. Like I feel like it's about where he would have finished. I don't know.
It's so hard to know.
Yeah, tough.
Yeah, I feel like the 352, obviously, he ran in Washington. Like, if you run a 352, like, you obviously think you're in great mile shape. I mean, it's a great mile time. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't blame him at all for, choosing to run that. Obviously, then running the 3K after is tough. Like, it's always going to be tough trying to run a 3K after racing a mile final an hour earlier. But maybe it would have been better for him looking back on it to just focus on the 5K, but
Yep.
we'll never know. Anyway, what's next for you then after a few days off? Back into it?
Yeah, just back into some easy runs. I probably won't work out for the rest of this week. Probably start my first workout next week. Kind of just slowly get back into it, especially with my back issues and just God, I can't believe how much of a grandpa I feel like today. I literally can barely stand up. Um but yeah, we're chilling. Just
Chilling.
getting back into it. I think my first race will be Brian Clay.
Brian
You
Fay?
know, Brian Fay. Yeah, the Brian Fay 1500.
Nice.
I don't even know where is that in I know it's in California. I don't know where, but yeah, it'll be
Washington.
there.
Yeah, no, that'll be good. It should be what, mid-April?
Yeah. Yep. When do you open your outdoor season?
Probably Drake relays. So we're going to altitude again pretty soon in a couple of weeks, and then probably come back to Drake, back to Des Moines for Drake relays. That was my final NCAA race actually. Us in the Drake relay. Well, actually in the DMR that
Wow.
one morning. Yeah, so the Drake relays 1500 last year. And then that's where I'll probably open up. That's not confirmed, but I think it pretty much is.
Yep. So wow, if I run the 1500 that day, we might get to battle again for fun.
For fun. Yeah.
For
No,
fun.
yeah.
Which would be the first time we've raced since relays.
Since Drake relays. Yep.
Wow. Over a year. That's crazy.
That is wild. It's been a while. So yeah, that's the plan. And then after that, I'll kind of see where I'm at. Hopefully I'll be in, decent shape. I feel like I'm coming back to normal after a few weeks of kind of feeling like I was not a runner. So
Yeah.
feeling like I'm getting back to being fit again, which is a good feeling. So hopefully, yeah, in another 5-6 weeks, I'll be in decent shape. And then I guess like at the end of the day, like the big bulk of the season is going to be like going over to Europe and racing in a few meets over there before British Champs in July. And I think USA's is that same weekend in July. So is it kind of similar for you? Obviously, you've got NCAAs and stuff. You kind of race a few early meets. You think you'll just do the 1500 at conference again?
Yep. Yeah. Then go out to, I don't know what regionals is this year, but yeah, hopefully get to nationals, which is in Austin, Texas, and then USA is in Oregon. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that'll be my plan for outdoor season. I kind of want to after indoor, like you know how hard it is to get an indoor qualifier.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of race a little bit less during outdoors in an ideal world because making it to regionals is obviously much easier than making it to nationals is indoors. So I'll probably race a few less times this outdoor season just so that by the time I'm peaking for nationals and USA's, I'll be peaking and like yeah.
Speaking of, what do you think is going to take in the 1500 for regionals?
42,
Yeah. So
40,
yeah,
42.
for anyone listening who doesn't kind of understand what that means, they take the top 48 guys from the East and from the West regions. So America just kind of broken into two regions. Top 48 go. Obviously, a few can scratch. If you've run a good 5K, you've run a good 800, and you've run a 1500. I don't know if anyone will have run all three, but you kind of can scratch out of one and focus on another. So top 48 who actually decide to go. So it's pretty wild how strong the NCAA is getting. 342, 343 will kind of probably scrape in into the top 48. So regionals, like obviously you're confident you can run, a sub 340 if you have to very comfortably now, but 343 for sure is no hard thing anymore.
Yeah.
But it's wild that at regionals, like it's never going to be easy. You know what I mean? Everyone there is like, maybe the prelim shouldn't be too hard, but like everyone there is a good runner.
Dude, and it's such crap because the East is so easy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the East is going to be so easy this year, and in the West alone, like Washington alone is harder than the entire East.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd probably take the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Washington guys if that was it in the East. If they were in the East and you just had to finish, behind all of them, you could be ninth and you'd get through. And then,
Yeah,
but
but I
I
mean, like
know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
the eight Washington boys are harder than the eight best runners in the East.
Yeah. I can probably agree with that. I mean, they've got 2 national champs now, 1500 and mile, basically. So.
Yeah, and Sam Ellis got third last year. He wasn't even at indoors.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be ridiculously hard to get out of the West. But I mean, the way I see it, if you can't get out of the West, you're not going to win a title anyway. So if I can't get out of the West, then I just I'm not good enough to win a title. So yeah, it is what it is. Realistically, I should be able to get out of the West. It's all the same guys that were at indoor except for Sam Ellis will be there as well, and I got second indoor. So even if Sam Ellis is better than me and let's say some of the Washington guys pass me up, I'm still probably the fifth or sixth best runner in the West. And that's assuming I go downhill, which I don't think I will. So yeah, the West is going to be ridiculously hard, especially if you're like one of those 340, 339 guys that's just like really trying to scrape in and get to nationals for the first time. Like, man, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely never easy. Yeah. So that'll be fun. But you've got a good kind of couple months before that. So
yeah. Are you in your like main base phase right now as well? Like what kind of mileage are you doing? And like
Yeah, pretty much we're kind of back into it. It'll be up to 80-ish miles a week. Maybe a little bit higher than that for a few weeks. Like we'll go up to altitude. Had my first kind of proper long run back this morning, 15 miles at 5:53s, I think, average. Because
Wow.
yeah, a lot of our long runs are like we go progressive, so we're like start out nice and slow and then kind of build into it. And the last like 8-ish, 6 to 8, sometimes more if we're feeling good. Miles are at like 5:30, 5:35 kind of thing. So it's like a
Wow.
good block of work. So we're getting back into the swing of things. I kind of had a few weeks of like downtime, got back into running, and now we're back into base phase basically for a few weeks, and then we'll start sharpening up. But yeah, should be good. The thing with mileage is it's definitely like a little bit lower than it was like in the summer and fall of being in college, but I feel like it's been working well, and I mean it's picking up again now anyway, so all
Yep.
going well. Hopefully it'll show in outdoor, I guess.
Awesome. Well, we'll find out at Drake Relays
Yep.
when you're racing the first 1500 back.
Yep. Should be good. Should be good. And it's weird because indoor I've done like all 3Ks. That's all I've run. I did a cross country 8K in December, and then since then I've done a 3K in January, and then three or two, yeah, two 3Ks in February. So the 15 will feel like a shock to the system, I'm sure. Like it will feel pretty quick, but yeah,
Yep.
hopefully the next few weeks I'll kind of get used to that feeling again and be good to go. So yep, looking forward to it. I'll see
Awesome.
you at Drake again soon.
Yep. Can't wait. Can't wait. It should be good. But yeah, I think that's everything we really needed to cover, right?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much all done. So sorry for the delay in getting these episodes out, especially the one that comes out before this, because it was our Nationals preview, and it's going to be a preview that comes out after Nationals. Promise it was recorded before. If it was recorded after, there'd be no point in making terrible predictions. But uh, yeah, no, it's good to be back at it with this, and we'll be on to the next episode soon whenever there's more interesting stuff to talk about. So
Yep.
yeah,
Might have a bit of a break, honestly, like a few weeks where we're not really going to be up to anything, so there's no really need to film one, but probably film one maybe right before we race again,
yeah,
kind
and
of
then
preview
maybe
it. And
maybe at Drake we can get another in-person one.
that'd be sweet. Yeah,
Yep,
super fun.
yep. Cool. All right. Thanks for listening, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one.